whatever be the case, I mean, I'm sure they've done their work. I'm sure they've done their market research. And there must be something that says, okay, there's enough basic infrastructure for us to be able to bring these vehicles into the country. So the same thing with the digital space. There must be an infrastructure. But if you're thinking of a country, like I said, think of it as a country. You have the economy, you have the infrastructure. Guess what? You have the language. So a country has the official language. The digital space has the official language, right? It is called digital literacy. You've got to be digitally literate. You have to speak the language. You have to learn the language. It is intentional. So there are programs, yes, there are initiatives to help those of us who are not so digitally literate to become digitally literate. Are there barriers to this? Yes, because like they mentioned, the cost of the phones, the cost of data. So these are things that government would look at. These are things that those who are manufacturing, right, the phones can say nothing stops us. Nothing stops us whatsoever from creating our own cell phones. Our own, China does it. You have all the popular brands, but when you go to China, you're going to see a lot of the popular brands. You're going to see brands you've never heard of. Right? I have a tenant, he's Chinese. He runs the #1 ISP company in this country for most Chinese corporations. His phone is not any one of these popular brands. It's done in China. So the ability to produce these things would help us, it will bring the cost down. Internet connectivity, you've talked about that, network, the cost has to come down. The quality of it has to come down. I'm not going to mention which network I use, right? But I'm sitting there, I had to switch my phone off because I don't have any network, right? I went to Ibadan about 2 weeks ago, the same network. No, I was in Ibadan for a weekend, I had no connection whatsoever. But the moment I enter Lagos, the connection comes back. So we have to be intentional about the digital literacy initiatives, particularly in rural and urban areas, and see what we can put in place to ensure that these people are educated and these people are conversant. Because when you have I know the government is doing some work, and we should give them kudos. And I know that at the top, because we talked about that, you know, I think it was in 2022 as well, 24 African leaders came together and signed what they call the Dakar Call to Action. I don't know if you're aware about that, the Dakar Call to Action. And it's them recognizing the urgent need to accelerate digitalization, right, in their countries, so that by the year 2030, you're going to have universal coverage. That's the intention. But they can't do it all by themselves, right? But so we give them some, at least they're recognizing it, because COVID-19 made us sit up. Yes, it had devastating impact, devastating consequences, but it also showed that countries that had digital assets, that is the digital public infrastructure, countries that had such things were able to deliver, you know, essential services to their citizens in the time when there was a, you know, global crisis. And countries that did not have the digital assets, they had poor digital public infrastructure, they had very bad or low broadband coverage or network coverage. They were not able to do these things. So there's been a wake-up call among African leaders to say, look, we need to do something, but those creative ideas are going to come from this room. You are the ones that are going to say, you know what, I have this concept. I can help. Let me just say this, and it's a very interesting story. I was going to say I can help my fish seller, or I can help my tomato seller, whatever it is in the market. Why it's a funny story is that there was a day I was working on a transaction, and I was really expecting, you know, that call that would change your life forever. And I remember exactly where I was, the law school junction, and my phone rang, and I saw the number. It was an unknown number. And I picked up the phone call, and I heard, hello, Emini Yalata. You know, we have not seen you in the market. I am your pepper seller. I have not seen you in the market for a long time. I'm like, God, People have Obama on their phone list. They have the vice president. God, you have to change my story, you know. But it's an opportunity like that. I say an opportunity because I could sit back and say, how can I help this woman to be digitally literate? And the next day I come up with something for market women. And before you know it, that product is, you know, right across the country. So it's us sitting here. The government is not going to do everything, right? You have to be able to do that. You have to be able to do that to help them reach that line. Does that help?
Interesting. Please let's give her another round of applause. I mean, and the Yalata can be lifesaver when Obama is not there to save you. All right. So moving on, talking about you know, the instances he gave, and also congratulating you on your technology. What does an ideal collaboration between Western technology providers and indigenous ones like you look like? And how can partnership ensure that technology not only reaches indigenous communities, but is used in ways that align with their values and goals?
So excellent. Actually, a number of excellent examples pop into my mind, and you'll be surprised. So, how many people today expect to get their power from the grid? Just a quick census. From NEPA. Maybe 5%. But a few years ago, I was in Nigeria to represent the U.S. Department of Commerce in a trade mission, and I met with a number of Nigerian companies. Quietly there in just one little quiet part of the room, not making, this was probably 2005 when President Obama 2005, when President Jonathan Yaradua was sick and Jonathan was, and Yaradua, okay, 2005. Now, this guy, he just drew my attention because nobody was paying attention to him. I was like, hey, dude, what's happening? Tell me about your company. So he goes into this thing, and he's very passionate about it. And he tells me, you know, this hotel, this was Oriental Hotel, this conference. This hotel runs on generator right now. You can actually hear the sound. And he said, but, you know, all of this could be solved by solar. Young guy in the country. So I start, you know, to me, I'm like, this is interesting. Tell me more. So he's telling me about how solar, because he says in 50 years, if you wait for the government, they will not distribute power to the entire country. So he starts making more sense to me. So a few years down the line, I kind of keep up with him. Hey, what's happening with your project? He said, well, you know, Bill Gates, they have something called, well, because of his vision and tenacity. Okay? Same thing. This guy has convinced enough people, and how many people know about Breakthrough Energy Ventures? Bill Gates Energy Foundation. A few years down the line, he tells me, you know, I'm going to Seattle. Okay, really? Okay, well, hey, I'll come pick you up in the airport when you're done, you know, and you tell me more about what you're doing. This guy from the local vision now owns one of the top solar companies, I will not mention the name, in Nigeria today. So he collaborated from that same local. He went through, out of sheer tenacity, he was able to get hooked up with Breakthrough Energy Ventures. Bill Gates was in Nigeria early. Well, I think I'm giving it too much away because you will know what company. But my point is that this is one example in the solar industry. How many people understand how fast the solar industry is growing in Nigeria? Tremendous, right? Yeah. I was in an energy conference and I was surrounded by solar companies. Okay, now, Fast forward a few years later, we want to build an assembly plant and we need power. And we're sitting down there in Atlanta thinking, how are we going to solve this problem? How are we going to solve this problem? So I'm like, oh, I met with a bunch of companies that have been talking, this is 2005, they've been talking about gas, right? They've been talking about gas, the same CNG and LPG we're talking about today, right? So I'm like, you know, power and solar, those are all the same thing. So I pick up my phone and call my guy. I'm like, look, how are we going to solve the problem? He tells me, he says, look here, you can talk to them, and the energy, you're building a highly efficient assembly plant. The energy you're going to use there is not going to come from CNG. I'm like, why? You know, what do you mean? It's not going to come from CNG. That's the cheapest source, and whatever. It's plentiful in Nigeria, whatever. Okay. So the guy goes on and says, look, you're going to have grid, which is going to serve you 10% of the time. You're going to have a generator, and it's not going to be CNG because the guy who's going to bring your CNG is going to require you to have $250,000 in the equipment called a PRMS. How many people know what a PR is? The thing that drops the pressure of your CNG, otherwise you can't use it, right? Okay. So I say this point to say that this same person who is a local guy in Nigeria, after convincing me that this CNG dream is not going to happen for you, I end up talking to a manufacturer at that time who was interested in building an assembly plant. I end up talking to them, and they had been talking about CNG. They were sold on it. And I said, look, trust me, your dream is not going to happen because there is this guy that has convinced me, local guy. And due to that guy's interaction with me, he's now building a solar farm for an assembly plant that has a 5,000 unit production a year in Morocco. Okay. But to really tie this down to your question, listen, this hub, I grew up in Lagos, right? So I've been away for 36 years, who knows that. But my point is, there's been a UPS office here for years, and they had to describe it to me. It's right next to UPS. But when I was growing up, so I've never been here. This is my first time here. The gate opened, and I walked in. My God, they have this in Lagos now? Apart from all the clubs you all have in Lagos too, but different story. My point is the opportunities that are in Lagos today are not what was in Lagos 35 years ago. So as hopeless as we all look at the situation, you will find out that you are going to grow more unicorns by just the local interaction with the opportunity. But remember, you guys have much more opportunity than we had. I probably would never have become a doctor if this existed 35 years ago. Because I was all crazy about mechanical engineering tech. If somebody opened this up to me, okay, so again, the local interaction, and we have to understand that these opportunities exist everywhere. See, that guy's story that I painted is an everyday occurrence. It's not that he got lucky. No. Your tenacity, your vision will make you from here find your destination. These things happen every day. Okay. So when you're thinking local, it's everywhere, every day. And therefore, you need to understand these opportunities where you need to use your tenacity to find it. So when you say equity, digital equity, you have to find those opportunities, because guess what? they are indeed there.
There. Interesting. Thank you very much for landing so quickly. And we're going to wrap up this final question and, of course, add it up to your one take. We've established even from previous panels that every collaboration, someone has to bring value. I mean, there's always a takeaway in all of that. And I want us to, if you have real-time experiences of maybe collaborations that went south, and my real question will now be, how can long-term relationships between Western and indigenous collaborators be nurtured beyond individual projects? Because sometimes we feel it's a one-off and then we're off it. So you can just add that with your final take so that we do that in 2 minutes each and then we'll wrap up the session. I'll start with you, sir.
I spoke about infrastructure, digital infrastructure, but there's another type of infrastructure, and that is cultural. Right? Cultural infrastructure speaks to our belief systems, our values, our traditions. And at the beginning I spoke about comparing the two landscapes. And what I want us to understand is that we need to be very intentional about getting the Western culture to understand our own culture. Just like we have digital literacy, there's also cultural literacy, right? Don't blame them if they don't want to work with you, because you are not making the effort to teach them about your customs. You're not making the effort to teach them about your culture. I was speaking with Promise. Sorry, Promise, I keep mentioning your name. And he said something to me. He says, our children don't even speak our language. Right? Our children don't speak our language. I have 4 kids, right? My second daughter is in Colombia. She, of her own, had to go on the internet, look for Yoruba classes, and then she now communicates in her tit-tat Yoruba to us. Why? Because daddy and mommy just never spoke Yoruba at home. So that's, again, the legacy that we bring into this space. It's there in our subconscious mind that we don't value our culture. Right? It's changing, music is changing, fashion is changing. My mother used to wear Ankara in those days. I mean, my mother had, Naomi Campbell cannot stand next to my mother. She had an amazing figure, and she was known for her Ankara outfits. But then who wore Ankara? She was 40 years ahead of her time. But today you see those same styles, and now Ankara is everywhere. So our culture has been suppressed, and my own takeaway is that somebody here take up that initiative of a cultural training program where you are helping these Western people to understand our culture. They want to come. Don't think they don't want to come. But they also need to understand your culture. If you don't teach them, they will come, trample on it, then you get offended, you get, you know what I'm saying. So a cultural training program so that we can both speak and understand our language.
Thank you very much. Over to you.
So the first thing I want to say about these is that we need to understand, why are the Westerners here? We got to ask ourselves that question. Why are they here? Why are they here? It's important for us to understand that in order for you to deliver 10%, 12%, 20% year-over-year annual growth, you got to be in Africa. The business people will tell you that. Right now, the highest grossing, you see 3.5% year-over-year growth in North America and Europe, and they think you're fantastic. Okay, so why are the Westerners here? It's because there's something here that's attractive. So while you've taken care of the culture, you've nurtured the ecosystem, one of the ways I think it's important to make the relationships endure is to make sure you are pointing out the value clearly to them, politely, not with hubris, but you're pointing out the value to them. Because where are the Westerners going to find educated 18 to 40-year-old, college-educated, trainable, young people. In Japan, the average age is somewhere around 60-something. Their population has taken a U-turn. So why are the Westerners here? You have to point this out to them. Frankly speaking, I can make the argument that they don't have a choice. But having said that, that's the speech of a proud guy, right? You know, but you have to keep pointing out these things, and you have to learn why are the Westerners here. And then you have to leverage that knowledge that you have for your own benefit. Look, when you're going out, you're young, you're well-educated, you're well-spoken, you're smart, you have computer skills, you have a tech hub like this to build you up. Then you got to make sure that they understand your value.
Understanding value. All right. Thank you very much, sir. Understanding value there for Mr. Fale. Please, can we hear Shei's last take on this segment?
Okay, so I'll add to what they both said and just wrap it up. And it's the same thing, actually. Aside from bringing value, you also need to create value as well. I would look at my own personal experience from, say, my stints during localization. And also to write on words that I remember having like small cultural classes in my own space about what it's like. Oh, sorry, for context, I worked in Asia and they considered me Western. So I would have small cultural classes about what it's like being Western. So you need to also create value, not just bring value. There are so many opportunities here, and why are they here? And by they, I mean the Westerners. Why are they here? They're here because there is a hungry workforce that is actually skilled. But then we're all, it's a little bit controversial, but many of us are all just sitting on our arms waiting for things to be, waiting for things to happen, waiting for things to be brought to us. So we just need to learn to create value. That's it.
Interesting. Learn to create value, understand infrastructure and the key, and of course, having to know that we have quite a lot of opportunities in Africa that are waiting to be tapped. Please, can we give our panelists a round of applause? Thank you very much, Mr. Smith, Mr. Faleye, and Shei. Can we have our picture session while we appreciate them again for shedding lights on this topic? Mr. Paul, are you ready? Okay, let's do this again. Wow, it's been a very long day, and yes. Are we having value at all?
Can I say something to you off camera? Right? And I want to illustrate a point. Someone who was very prominent who bankrolled it. But this is where I'm going. I got to meet with the executive director. And he said to me, he said, because none of the cast was Nigerian. Not one single. How can you do a musical, Fela on Broadway, and not a single cast is Nigerian? I mean, we would have wanted the guy who played Fela to be Nigerian. And they said to me, they said, Michael, they mentioned the artist, I will not mention his name. They said this person would have been perfect for Fela. She said, but we have a problem. That when he comes to the rehearsals, he will come with attitude. He will come with swag. He will come with, I am a celebrity. And those work ethics do not work. So the part of the problem they have with us is our work ethics. We need to bring in that. We need to up our game, right? 9 o'clock is 9. When you say you resume work at 9, you don't show up at 9. You come in before, do your coffee, catch up on your weekend gossip. By 9 o'clock, you're at your table and you're working. God bless you.
Very much. Thank you very much for the compliment. I appreciate. Please, can we give them another round of applause as they go? Thank you very much for coming. I love your jacket, by the way. And of course, congratulations to you, to the Max FM team. Congratulations. Quite a lot of stories. We'll be catching up on that after now. All right, finally, we're talking about collaborative project. And I want to start with Mr. Marvin. I want you to speak to us about the need for collaboration and what sort of project you think we can, engage ourselves in when we talk about indigenous and Western collaboration.
First off, good evening, everybody. To answer that, I don't think there is a particular thing or project. Collaboration works everywhere, in every corner, in my office, I used to say, or I will always say that I am the king of partnership because I know how strong and how far everyone can go with collaboration. It is always dangerous to work in silos because there are a lot of things we can do as individuals, an individual, or even an organization. You understand? So collaborating in every sphere of life just brings you closer to whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. Be it us collaborating, for example, talking about collaboration, one of the reasons why, and I heard someone talk about Afrobeat here before, one of the reasons why Afrobeat has gotten to where it is today is because of the collaboration. For example, some guys in Ghana were talking about how the Nigerian artists have gotten to a certain level. They've gone global. And I remembered how that happened. It was because a lot of these guys felt like they wanted to do more. So they started reaching out. I remember when Two-Face did his first collaboration with Beanie Man, and then did the band as well. And all of those collaborations was what every other Afrobeat artist today is beginning to enjoy because it opened the market. You understand? So that's what collaboration does. It just gives you more than you have, because you have people coming together, to do all of this. So I have this. For example, I work in the media. You work in a different space, and I bring mine, you bring yours, put it together, and then we're achieving everything together. You're achieving what you wouldn't normally achieve in the media space, and I'm achieving what you're also going to bring. So basically, collaboration and partnership should be the way of life.
Interesting. I like the fact that you were not here when the first few panel sessions spoke about Afrobeat and the rest, and you still touched on that. What would you say was the success? You mentioned the likes of Two-Face and the rest having to open the way, and they are still relevant till today. What would you say is responsible for such? Because it boils down to the last question I asked. Collaboration shouldn't be a one-off. It should be like, something that goes in even after that project. What would you attribute to the success of the Nigerian Afrobeat today?
Collaboration again is to the word, and then but this time, the last speaker talked about tenacity, vision. That the Nigerian artists, all of a sudden, became very big in their minds, even before they became actually big. So, before now, what used to happen was Nigerian artists would reach out to the international artists for collaborations. And they did that consistently. They would pay. I know a lot of people, I remember that there was a time, two of the P-Square brothers had a little bit of an issue because one of them said, one of the collaborations they did with T.I., I should think, the other one wasn't really in support because they paid a lot of money to T.I., and there was also a rumor of D'banj paying Kanye West at some point. But you see, all of those things that these guys did has now made Afrobeat gotten to a point where Nicki Minaj would call smart because they saw that the African market was really huge, But today the story is done. So now they're reaching out. And again, another thing they did is one of the things that also helped Afrobeat was originality. These guys own their space. They were not afraid to use their indigenous language. They were not afraid to tell their stories, with their own music. And then they had a very large fan base. They didn't cross out of Africa. They stayed in Africa at some point, And that is when the collaboration had to turn. And those guys now wanted to collaborate because they needed what we had, the numbers. So that is basically the trajectory of how Afrobeat has actually got to where it is, collaboration.
Interesting. Please let's give him a round of applause on that. I'll come to you, Toha. We're talking about collaboration, and I want you to speak to us on how collaboration, practicality of it, using the Trace story. I mean, you guys are doing amazing in your field, and we've established one thing since morning, that collaboration is key and necessary. So how would you speak to us from your perspective and experience in the sector?
It's better.
Good evening, everyone. So coming from my own perspective for what I think collaboration is, I'll call it cross-promotion in terms of, I work in the media space now and you work in fintech. You have a different story from my story, and we're two different entities, but when we collaborate together, when we come together, we can tell the story of each other. I can come from the media perspective and say, oh, this is what I can bring to the table, and this is what you can bring to the table. For Trace, what we've looked at over the years is how we can, not just entertain people, but also empower people. And to empower people, obviously, you have to collaborate with as much people, as much entity, right? As much entity as you can. And that's why we decided to bring up another app that can even, educate people and can make you understand make you understand our vision, and one of our vision is to entertain and empower the youth, right? So for us, collaboration is not just partnership, but also to empower each other, which is what we stand for.
Still on that, before I allow you go, do you think there are risks attempting to merge indigenous and Western knowledge systems? And how can this risk be mitigated? You know, I mean, we're talking about in your bid to, you know, stay authentic and to do your thing, we might want to act like the Western world. He just made mention of the fact that they're now paying us to do our thing. If we were not proud of what we have, we wouldn't have gotten to that stage. So how do you strike a balance between having to, you know, understand these best practices, that we do not erode our culture and authenticity while trying to, you know, imbibe Western systems?
So, looking at it from an holistic point of view, yeah, I would talk about the fashion sense now. Now, you know, usually before, I don't think that a lot of people would be proud to wear an Adire attire or an Ashoke outside. I think people would rather put on an English attire for any corporate event. But now we've seen how, you know, we're able to adapt their fashion sense, and as more or less like collaborating the style. So we have Ankara made in 2 pieces now, and you still look, you can wear it for any occasion you like, be it an official occasion or a party or a dress down, right? So for me, I think that what we need to do is to adapt, not just to take everything. And I think that's the problem.
And now let's look at the integration of indigenous knowledge. How can we incorporate indigenous knowledge and practices into media and technology projects here, so that we still remain, you know, with our A game and authentic?
So what's funny is it's just about what's happening at the moment for us.
Yeah, congratulations again.
Thank you. So today, officially, we just announced our new indigenous radio station. We've never had a pidgin station, so for the first time we're having a pidgin station. But now what we did was to say, you know, let's sit down, you know, and strategize. There are pidgin stations everywhere. So, but now, are you just going to be like everyone else? How are we going to infuse this, you know, with technology, with basically what's in vogue now? And we decided to come up with a unique and the first urban pidgin radio station. So we're probably going to be the first radio station that would have, that's going to be youth-centric. You know, so that's basically just to answer your question. So we decided to say, okay, you know what, let's come back to Nigeria. Let's bring, pidgin English is basically our, you know,
main
language. Do you understand? But it is not just the people in the village that talk with that language. All of us that went to school, in our offices, this is how we interact. So who said that pidgin language is supposed to be for strictly the locals, for the market women, all of that? What happened to the other people? And again, the population of Nigeria, over 60% are young people, under 40. So are we going to cut off these people? So one of the things we decided to do is to say, okay, you know what? Indigenous language, right? But we're going to make it sound cool. We're going to make it look fun because it is what we have. The work has already been done. Pidgin is global now. There's a big issue between, pardon me, I'm in an entertainment space, so I always go and use examples from entertainment. There was an issue with Kendrick Lamar and Lil Wayne concerning the Super Bowl. And then Kendrick just dropped this album, and one of the songs, kind of dissed Lil Wayne. If you check Lil Wayne's response, his reply on Twitter, he practically spoke in pidgin. The same thing Nicki Minaj did when this whole issue. So pidgin is global. At the moment, it is no longer a local language.
It's even in the Bible. For we be brethren.
Imagine. So we've gone past that stage of just it being local.
Yeah. I hope I will not be hearing I they go. All right, so let's wrap up because time is fast spent, and you'll be speaking more like you're wrapping up everything that has been said since morning. What's the way forward for media collaboration today? Most people spoke about how we should first start inwards before we look at Western. In your take, in your years of experience, are we doing enough locally collaborating? And what's the way forward to earning the trust of the Western world? When we talk about future collaboration in media, technology, retail, and the likes.
I think you just put it the way it should be put. We need to start inward first before we start looking outside. One of the, when she came up, I kind of smiled because I remember about 2 years ago, the CEO or the MD for Trace was on our station for an interview, some stuff that he had. And then we had a chat. And one of our conversations was like, you guys are big on TV. We're big on radio. We have the audience you don't have. You have the audience we don't have. Why don't we collaborate? As I speak to you, I think we'll probably be one of the few media houses that are cross-promoting. Max FM and Trace TV are partnering at the moment. This is a partnership that has started.
Let's applaud to that.
Already, yeah.
So we've started the conversation, we've started the work, and then maybe the next thing is to reach out to CNN and say, how do we do that? Take it outside. Yeah.
Yeah, so for my take from what he just said, right, in general, I think that, like I said initially, that collaboration is more or less like cross-promotion for each party, right? And the better we realize how very important it is in every field, apart from media, the better for us. Because, like you said, he's in the radio sector, right? And they're really huge where they are. And we're in the TV sector. Now, we could just say, oh, we're in a digital world where people, watch more of TV than radio. But we're forgetting that the indigenous guys listen to more radio than TV, right? So how do we come together? And that's why we decided to collaborate with him. Yes, some stations will not because, the ride of, oh, you're bigger or we are bigger, competition and all. But collaboration helps to bridge the gap between who's bigger and who's smaller. It helps to bring everybody close together. So more like I'm promoting you, you're promoting me. I don't think my reach is as wide as his reach in the indigenous side. His reach in indigenous side might not be as wide as my reach in the urban side, but we're collaborating together. Maybe one ad of Trace has gone on Max FM and somewhere in Jigawa they know Trace based on the radio jingles that they've heard, and maybe someone has watched TV and has seen Max FM and they're wondering, oh, Max FM, what's it doing on Trace, right? So it's cross promotion for us. Whether we like it or not, it's benefited both of us in ways that are profitable for us. So for looking at the guys abroad, right, as I like to call them, but I think that the first thing we need to do is to work inwards ourselves. It's how to come together as a firm, as a body, to see how we can promote ourselves. Because like you said, building for music, if we don't have a good sound, if we're not good enough with Afrobeats, if we've not done something that they're looking inwards for, they won't come to Nigeria. And if you notice now, every top American person wants to resonate with Nigerian. But like the Kalijana would put up a Wiz song on our Instagram platform because Wiz is growing big. Or a Nicki Minaj, we need a Davido to, promote her song, right? Or even a Kevin Hart will want to come.
Every collaboration, there should be something that you're bringing to the table. And in collaborating, it's not supposed to be a threat to you, but a win-win situation for all. With that, I want to say a very big thank you to Itoha and Marvin for doing that, and congratulations to Max FM. Looking forward to listening to the Urban Pigeon Radio. What dial is it? Let's first to know the dial. What's the dial? 89.9. What's it? FM. Okay, all right, interesting. So a round of applause for them. Thank you very much. Let's have the picture session with Mr. Paul, and after that, you give us the vote of thanks. Someone was asking, what is Switch Fusion all about, and all of that. Maybe it's your time to tell them, and to also intimate them that this is just one of the many talks that will be happening on the Swish Fusion Talks series. Okay, so let's have the picture first. DJ, give us some music while we pose to the camera.
Out of the conversation, many conversations being said here. There's one thing that holds true. Every single thing that is said is their own truth. But the thing is, did you pay any mind in any one of these truths that was said and you resonated with it? That's the whole idea. It's all about resonation, identifying, relating with something. So once you have, then that definitely means it motivates you to act. So they said there is no reaction without an action. So that is what we want to do. We want to make people, we want to be that catalyst of change, something that ignites and incites people to act, to innovate, to create, to ideate. So we thank you very much. And this is just the beginning. This is the inaugural edition of the Switch Fusion Talk series. We'll be having successive series, which is going to be a bi-monthly, as we build up to the main event, which is the Swish Fusion Media and Tech Summit, which will be holding on the 6th of June in 2025 at the Balmoral Convention Center, Federal Palace Hotel, Victoria Island. And we'll be bringing in loads of other great speakers, atomic speakers from around the world. So look forward to that. We thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing you on the next round. Thank you.